We have all known that hidden warmth that resentment seems to give, as if it were a small fire we keep in the chest to prove we are not fools, not weak, not to be taken again. We tell ourselves that if we hold it, we will be safe. We will keep the record straight. We will remember who did what and therefore be wiser next time. We wear it like armor. And yet, while we think we are holding it, it is holding us. It directs our thoughts in the night watches. It edits our prayers. It whispers in our choices. And it asks us to pay with quietness, with joy, with health. It becomes a governor over our inner country. Now, here is the startling reframe, startling, because it reverses what we thought was strength. Resentment is not power. It is consent to a supposed power apart from God. It is our signature on a false document. We imagine some person or act or memory has authority, and then we install that authority in our own consciousness. We give it a chair at our inner table. We let it speak. In other words, resentment is our agreement that there is a rival to God, a second cause, a second law, a second life. But there are not two powers in this world, as there seems to be. Thou couldst have no power over me, said the Master, unless it were given thee from above. Be not afraid. God is. If God is the only power, what are we doing when we give a person, a memory, or an injustice, the power to live in us? Are we not making an image and bowing down to it? Are we not saying, you have life in yourself. You can bless or curse me apart from God? That is the lie. The psalmist did not sing, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall negotiate with two powers. He sang, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. One shadow, one presence, one law. When we abide, we witness that there is only God. When we resent, we testify to a second power. Which testimony do we prefer to carry in our heart? Well, of course, someone will say, but what was done was wrong. We are not debating the forms of human conduct. We are exposing the spiritual fact. Wrong in the world of appearances cannot establish a second cause in God. It cannot originate power. It can only borrow the life we lend it. That is why the Master could say, resist not evil. Not because passivity is holy, but because there is no evil power to fight. There is only illusion, supported by our fear, fed by our remembrance, preserved by our inner rehearsal. Be not afraid. God is. Our purpose, then, is not to manage resentment, not to varnish it, not to tuck it into a pretty doctrine, not to retell the story with new adjectives. Our aim is to end it at the root by withdrawing our consent from a second power. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. When you and I enter the secret place and abide, if you abide in the Word and let the Word abide in you, the Word itself will do the dissolving. It will not argue with resentment. It will reveal the nothingness of the supposed cause and the allness of the real. Health, harmony, wholeness, completeness, perfection, infinite good. These are not prizes for the resentful. They are the fruit of abiding in one. So with us, it is in proportion that we dwell in God that resentment loses its breath, for we stop supplying it with ours. In the moment we notice that hard ember in the heart, we may say within ourselves, not to the person, not to the memory, but to the presence, Father, open my eyes to thy allness. And then rest a moment in the simple creed that leaves no rival standing. Be not afraid. God is. As we move forward, we are not promising ourselves a better story about yesterday. We are consenting to a better, government of today, the government of God alone. In that government, no offense can author power, and no memory can dethrone peace. We live and move and have our being in God. Let us be very honest here, because only honesty can free us. After the event is past, after the door is closed and the words are spent, what remains? We like to say, I'm over it, but notice what the mind does in the quiet hours. It replays the scene with improved dialogue. It predicts the next offense so we can be prepared. It writes a private brief for the prosecution and files it in the heart. And each of these rehearsals is a fresh tether to the injury. We are not in communion with God in those moments. We are in communion with our grievance. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath, the apostle said, not because anger on the clock is sinful, but because if it is the companion of our night, it will be the governor of our morning. Be not afraid. God is. You can feel the cost. The breath shortens. The shoulders rise as if to shield the heart. Sleep fragments into vigilant listening. The jaw takes up the work that the lips have stopped, grinding out the sentences we did not say. The body is not the author of resentment, but it becomes the canvas on which we write it. We think we are protecting ourselves, but the life within begins to spend itself as if paying a tax to a foreign ruler. Fatigue is not merely tired muscles. It is the burden of carrying a second power. Our opinions harden, and with them, our eyes. We stop noticing the flowers that did bloom, because we are studying the one that withered, writing its name in capital letters, so that we will never be fooled again. We call it being realistic. Well, of course, that is one kind of realism, the realism of a world that believes there are two powers. But if thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. If our attention is single to God, our being is lit. If it is divided, we live as if under a shadow of our own casting. Now, come with me into prayer and see what resentment does there. We kneel or we sit in the chair by the window and we begin to speak to the Father, but half our heart is still in court. We offer the words of devotion while holding an inner indictment, and then we wonder why the sense of presence is thin. We open a psalm and read, He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And yet we are not dwelling, we are drafting. We bring our gift to the altar, and the Master quietly reminds us, If thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, leave there thy gift, and first be reconciled, not because God is fastidious and will not receive an offering unless we have perfect manners, but because divided consciousness cannot receive undivided grace. God is always God. My arm is not shortened, says the Lord. It is not that God withholds. We withhold receptivity by clinging to a second power, someone else's will, harm, or injustice, as if it has authority to govern our life. I had a letter from a man who said, I pray each morning, but by noon the old bitterness returns, and by evening I am back to the same storm. He thought his prayer was failing him. In truth, the prayer was only a form while his faith remained with the grievance. He was asking the light to fill a room in which he would not open the shutters. When at last he could say, even falteringly, Father, show me thy allness here, and close the brief he had been polishing for years, a stillness entered that did not wait for circumstances to apologize. That stillness was not reward. It was the nature of single-eyed seeing. Be not afraid. God is. A double-minded man, says the scripture, is unstable in all his ways. Double-mindedness is the very atmosphere in which resentment lives. One mind for God, another for the offense. One hand on the altar, the other on the ledger. We do not merely remember the past, we relive it and call the reliving wisdom. But wisdom is not repetition. Wisdom is the singleness that refuses to lend life to what God did not ordain. So with us, it is in proportion that we dwell in God that prayer brightens, the body eases, the mind softens, not because the world has grown polite, but because our consent has been withdrawn from the illusion of a rival power. This is diagnosis, not condemnation. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. We are not punished by resentment from above. We are punished by resentment from within. For it occupies the temple with a guest who has no right to be there. Let us recognize the cost quietly, truthfully, and then learn the way out that the Master gave. A single eye, a reconciled heart, an altar unshadowed by accusation. Be not afraid, God is. Now we come to the decisive question, and I ask it not to trap you, but to free you. Can resentment exist without our believing there is a power that can injure, deprive, or dominate us? Think for a moment. If there were truly no power to hurt you, what would your resentment be fastening upon? If there were not some figure, person, system, history that you have granted the authority to define your peace, what fuel would feed the fire? Resentment does not live on air. It lives on our belief that something besides God holds sway over our life. That is why it feels so justified, because the belief in two powers seems reasonable to the senses. But reason in the senses is not revelation in spirit. Who told thee that thou wast naked? Was the divine question in the garden. Who told you you were defenseless, exposed to a rival law? Be not afraid. God is, we say, God is. And in the same breath, our resentment whispers, yes, but so-and-so is, and what they did is, and what they can still do is. You see the dualism. We want to hold the one presence in theory and hold the offending presence in practice. We kneel at the altar and keep a second altar in the pocket, a small shrine to the story of how we were wronged. Then we wonder why we do not feel the undivided shadow of the Almighty. The Master did not leave us unsure on this point. No man can serve two masters, not in business, not in prayer, not in memory. Either we will hold to the one and despise the other, or we will hold to the other and lightly regard the one. There are not two sovereignties. There is not God and also. There is God, the one presence, and then there is the hypnotism of appearances, the suggestion that something has self-existence apart from God. What is hypnotism but a scene enacted on the stage of consciousness that we take to be absolute? The crowd is loud, the robe is torn, Pilate washes his hands, and the mind says, here is power to crucify, here is power to release. But the Christ within answered, thou couldst have no power over me unless it were given thee from above. That was not bravado. It was the single-eyed recognition that only one grants power, and that one is the Father. Or here the psalmist walking through the valley of the shadow, not the valley of a second power. I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Do you see? When the presence of God is consciously set before us, the shadow is known as shadow. I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Resentment requires an enemy to be real. Take away the enemy's supposed authority, and resentment has no object to cling to, no stage on which to act. Make this practical now, because it is in practice that truth uses us. When we awaken and find the old narrative speaking first, when a name rises before we have even drawn a deep breath, that is not a sign of their power. It is a sign of what we have enthroned. We have let a person or an event sit on the throne of thought. We have said, perhaps unconsciously, "You are my governor today." In that moment, the work is not to argue with the memory, not to polish the indictment. The work is to notice that we are still treating an appearance as authority. We are consenting to two masters, and with that, noticing we have a choice. Remain in the court of appearances or return to the secret place. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. In that abiding there is no rival sovereignty to fear, no second cause to resist. Someone will say, but the facts. Well, of course, the facts of sense report are facts to the senses. The letter arrives, the insult is spoken, the contract is broken. We are not denying occurrences. We are denying their elevation to law. We are refusing to grant them creative power over the life that is God expressing as us. If the offense had power in itself, it would not require our continual rehearsal to remain alive. Ask yourself gently, what happens to this feeling if I withdraw the honor I have been giving it? What remains if I take it off the throne and quietly set the Lord always before me? You will find that resentment has no breath without your belief. You will find that peace is not a mood imported from better circumstances. It is the nature of a consciousness undivided. So with us, it is in proportion that we accept the one power, that resentment loosens. Not because the offender has changed costume, but because we have changed government. The single eye fills the whole body with light. The double eye keeps us in twilight. Choose, then, in the small hours and in the marketplace, the inner allegiance. When the temptation rises to rehearse, answer it with the creed that dismantles the whole stage. Be not afraid, God is. And let that be not a sentence to recite only, but the scepter by which you refuse admission to any other sovereign in your thought. In that refusal, resentment has no enemy to honor, and so it cannot endure. Having seen that resentment lives on our consent to a second power, we must now take up the Master's way out. And it is very simple, very exact, and not sentimental. Forgiveness is not a courtesy extended to an offender, nor is it an agreement that what was done is right. Forgiveness is a law of God, an operation of spirit within consciousness that dissolves the belief in a rival authority. When we forgive, we are not doing anyone a favor. We are removing an obstruction to grace. We are saying, I will not let this memory, this face, this event sit in the throne that belongs to God. In other words, forgiveness restores us to alignment with the one power. And because it is law, it works impersonally. It will work whether the personality pleases us or displeases us, whether the ledger balances or not. Be not afraid. God is. Hear the Master in the hour of offense. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. This was not poetry, it was practice. He was not excusing conduct. He was exposing ignorance, ignorance of God, ignorance of true selfhood. They know not. The real identity of man, the image and likeness of God, is not a malicious will opposing God. It is the offspring of spirit. When we behold the deed that contradicts love, we are not beholding true being. We are beholding mesmerism. the sleep of Adam, a dream of two powers. Forgiveness declares, I refuse to take this dream as law. I refuse to grant it authority. So the master could say to the guilty and the condemned, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more, not as a lax judge, but as one who would not lend reality to the mask. Forgiveness is clarity. It separates the hypnotic appearance from the spiritual fact and lets the light do the work. Now, of course, the common cry is, I don't feel forgiving yet. We wait for a mood as if mercy were a weather pattern. That is not quite true if you understand the nature of law. The law of spirit does not wait upon feeling. Feeling follows obedience. If ye know these things, happy are ye if ye do them. It is what we do with truth that will produce the change. Begin in the small, exact way truth instructs. Enter the secret place. Set the Lord before you, and without argument say within, Father, I release this person, this story, from the authority I have been giving it. I withdraw my consent from a second power. Be thou the only presence here. Do not negotiate with memory. Do not rehearse. Do not judge your temperature of tenderness. Do the thing and the feeling will come. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. If you will present a clean channel, clean of accusation, clean of self-justification, the law of forgiveness will act through you as surely as the law of buoyancy lifts what is surrendered to it. Why does this work? Because forgiveness returns thought to God as the only presence and thus robs resentment of its oxygen. Resentment must feed upon a belief. You have power over me. Forgiveness answers, thou couldst have no power over me, except it were given from above. And then it abides in that recognition until the suggestion of arrival fades like fog before the sun. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. Forgiveness is the act that makes the eye single. It is the inward turning that says, there is not God, and also there is only God, and the heart relaxes into its native government. Health, harmony, wholeness, completeness, perfection, infinite good. These begin to appear not as prizes for doing a noble deed, but as the fruit of restored singleness. I recall a businessman who came saying, my partner has wronged me. I cannot forgive him. He thought forgiveness meant approving the deed or entering again into foolish trust. I said, we are not discussing business arrangements. We are discussing government. Place your affairs under God. Each morning and evening, without fail, sit quietly and say, Father, I forgive his law. I release this name, this figure, from the authority I have imagined. Thou alone art presence and power. Be thou the governor of my house. Then rest a minute in. Be not afraid. God he did not feel kindly the first days. Sometimes he felt more angry because he was not rehearsing his case. But he kept faith with the law. Within a fortnight, the bitterness lost its grip. Sleep returned. And with a clear mind, he knew precisely what rightful steps to take. The outward result mattered less than the inward dominion, but even there the law made the crooked straight. He settled the accounts without rancor and without harm. This was not magic. It was the impartial action of forgiveness as law. Remember the Master's counsel. If thou bring thy gift to the altar, and there rememberest that thy brother hath aught against thee, first be reconciled. Not because God is withholding, but because divided consciousness cannot receive undivided grace. Forgiveness is altar cleansing. It sweeps out the second throne. It is the practiced refusal to honor any power but God. So with us, it is in proportion that we forgive as law, that resentment thins, prayer brightens, and the heart knows again its single allegiance. When next the old story knocks, do not answer with argument, answer with obedience. Father, I withdraw my consent from a second power. Be not afraid. God is. Now we must make this so simple that we can use it when the breath shortens and the shoulders rise. The cure is not time. The cure is the practiced return right now to the awareness that God is the only power. When the memory rises uninvited, when a name is spoken and you feel the stomach tighten, when the email arrives and the pulse quickens, do not argue, do not negotiate, do not compose a better speech. Turn within at once and re-enthrone the one, quietly, secretly, right where you are. Let this be your pivot. Be not afraid. God is. Not as poetry, not as a charm, but as a conscious refusal to grant power to the appearance. In that instant, you are withdrawing your consent from a second master. This is the mechanics. The trigger is not authority. It is temptation. It invites you to bow to a second power. Recognize the invitation and decline it. I have set the Lord always before me. Because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved. Set him before you now. Say within, Father, thou alone art presence and power. I will not serve two. Be thou the governor here. Then stop. Be still a few moments. Be still and know that I am God. Let the words fade into knowing. Feel the breath move lower. Feel the jaw unclench. Feel the heart come under a single government. If it does not at once remain, abide until the mind yields and the heart softens, even 30 seconds, even a minute. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. It will use you the moment you stop using the grievance. Privacy is essential. Enter into thy closet, and when thou hast shut thy door, pray to thy Father which is in secret. Keep it locked up within you. Do not announce that you are forgiving or that you have found a method. Go and tell no man. The Father who seeth in secret rewards openly by restoring your inner government. And be sincere. We are not manipulating spirit to get a result in matter. We are honoring the one, period. If a feeling of peace comes, good. If not, abide anyway. Feeling will follow obedience. How does this look across a day? A name appears in conversation instantly. Be not afraid. God is. A headline strikes a nerve. Be not afraid. God is. The body tightens before the meeting. Be not afraid. God is. Add nothing. Take nothing away. Refuse the rehearsal. If ye stand praying, forgive. So forgive, silently, as law. Father, I release this name from the authority I have been giving it. Thou alone art. Then rest. 10 seconds at the sink. 1 minute in the parked car. 2 breaths before you answer the phone. This is not performance. This is abiding. It is the single eye undoing the double image. But I returned and the bitterness returned again. Of course, you have not failed. You have been given another opportunity to enthrone the one. Each return starves the illusion. Each refusal weakens the habit of 2 powers. Submit yourselves to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. What is the devil here but the suggestion of a rival authority? Resist, not by combat, but by non-consent. Be not afraid. God is. 1,000 times in 1,000 small moments if necessary. Time is not your savior. Willingness is. Right now is always enough for God. You will find that the very instant you choose the one, a light steals in. It may be slight at first, a softening, a breath, the sense that you are not standing alone in your own name. That is the sign that the throne is correctly occupied. Keep it inward and steady. Let the world chatter. Let memory knock. You remain at the door with a single password. Be not afraid. God is. In that practice, the spell of resentment breaks, not by argument, but by the dawning of the only presence, and you will know it by its fruit. The mind quiets, the body unarmors, prayer brightens. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. So with us, it is in proportion that we return simply and immediately, that light fills the house and the stranger power finds no room in us. There are moments when, even with all this light before us, the heart says, I cannot. The wound feels too fresh, the consequence too large, the feeling too stubborn. Let us be kind here. This is not failure. This is revelation. It reveals that we have been trying to forgive as a personal achievement, mustering feeling as if we could bend the law with our mood. Well, of course, the personal sense cannot do this. The flesh profiteth nothing, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. When we meet the wall where feeling will not move, we have come to the sacred threshold, where humility begins and grace can take the scepter. What is the lawful way then? It is given to us by the Master in the darkest hour. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Notice he did not say, I, as a person, will try very hard to forgive. He yielded the act to the only presence, that is forgiveness itself. This is our path when we cannot forgive yet. We do not push, we do not pretend, we do not polish a virtue for display. We surrender. Not my will, but thine be done. We admit, I cannot of my own self do this, and we ask that the Father forgive in us and as us. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities, says the Apostle, for we know not what we should pray for as we ought. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. Let it. How then do we proceed in practice? Enter your closet. Shut the door. Keep it locked up within you. Sit as you are dry, resistant if you must, and speak simply, without ornament. Father, forgive. Remove this hardness from me. Reveal thy presence where I see only a person and a past. Take away the stony heart out of my flesh, and give me a heart of flesh. Then be still, and know that I am God. Do not search your chest for warmth. Do not examine your eyes for tears. Do not audition yourself for sainthood. Wait upon the Lord. If only for a minute, two, then let the mantra that enthrones the one seal, the prayer, be not afraid. God is. Rise and go about your hour. And when the name returns and the stomach tightens, return again, not with effort, but with yielding. Father, thou forgive here. I will not serve two. This can be done at the sink, in the parked car, between the rings of a telephone. The place is the inner altar. The time is now. This is not excusing wrong. It is refusing a second power. It is not inviting more injury. It is changing government. We are not saying what happened was fine. We are saying only God is presence and power here. When you yield forgiveness to God, you take your hands off the lever that jams the gate, and the flow of grace resumes its course. It is God which worketh in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. So if you cannot will it, ask that the will be given. If you cannot do it, ask that the doing be done through you. The first sign will not always be emotion. Sometimes it is a quieting of the argument inside, a small lessening of the appetite to rehearse. Sometimes it is the breath softening of its own accord, as if the body had heard there is only one government and can relax its guard. You may say, but I ask, and I still feel cold. Ask again. Not to convince God, but to keep the door unlatched in you. Remember, men ought always to pray and not to faint. Each return is a step away from self-authority into God authority. Each surrender is a refusal to enthrone the past. And do not go out to announce, I am forgiving. Go and tell no man. Keep it secret. And your Father who seeth in secret shall reward openly, not necessarily by changing other people on your schedule, but by restoring the inner dominion that no person can give or take away. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Let that be the song in this interval when you cannot yet say, I forgive. Say instead, Father, forgive in me. And seal it with a creed that leaves no rival standing. Be not afraid. God is. In that surrender, the law of forgiveness moves of itself, and the river flows again, where it seemed a stone had dammed it. So with us it is in proportion that we yield the doing to God, that grace proves itself. And the heart, once hard as flint, begins to know its softness, not as sentiment, but as the presence of the one forgiving in us and as us. Now let us face the subtle trap, because the adversary of our peace rarely comes with horns. It comes draped in nobility. We say, I'm just being honest. We say, I'm only protecting myself. We say, I'm standing for what's right. And with those respectable labels, resentment is invited to sit at our table and call itself virtue. Well, of course, honesty is good, protection is prudent, and justice is holy, but not when they are saturated with a second power. By their fruits ye shall know them. Does the thought we are holding bring the fruit of gentleness, purity, and peace? Or does it tighten the jaw, speed the pulse, isolate us from God? The wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. There is the test. Here is the distinction that frees us. Discernment is of God, resentment is of reaction. Discernment sets a boundary in peace and then rests in the government of spirit. Resentment keeps the scene alive by rehearsal and seeks an emotional payment. Discernment says, yes, this far and no farther, and afterward the heart grows quiet. Resentment says, this far and no farther, and then goes home and argues the case to a mirrored jury. Discernment steps under the shadow of the Almighty. Resentment steps back into the court of two powers. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Ask in any moment, does this thought draw me into that shadow or into the glare of self-justification? If it burns and tightens and requires an audience, it is not discernment, it is grievance in costume. I'm just being honest. A man told me, as he retold the injury for the 7th time that week, honesty, if it is of God, liberates. It does not inflame. Truth makes free. It does not create a private theater for the ego to perform its pain. I'm protecting myself, a woman said, while rehearsing conversations she would never have. Protection, if it is of God, is Psalm 91. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. It is not barbed wire woven around the heart. I'm standing for what's right, Alida declared. Yet his nights were governed by bitterness. Justice, if it is of God, is under one government. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. To grasp the gavel in our imagination and demand an emotional settlement is not righteousness. It is the enthronement of a second power. Let us take the inner test now, quietly, personally. Bring the thought before God. Does it become still in his presence? Does it settle into the secret place? Or does it grow louder when the imagination takes the bench? If it is of spirit, it will yield to be still and know that I am God. If it is of resentment, it will resist stillness and require noise. The wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated. Measure there, not by the storyline, by the fruit. What then of boundaries, of memory, of self-respect? We do not discard them. We redeem them from double-mindedness. Boundary under God is simple and clean. We choose the rightful action, speak the quiet yes or no, and then put all parties under the governance of one. Memory under God is witness without rehearsal. We remember the lesson and forget the theater. Self-respect under God is not prickliness. It is identity rooted in the likeness of spirit. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Not because I have conquered a rival power, but because in the presence of God there is no rival to bow to or resist. Be not afraid, God is. Here is the practice that unmasks the disguise. When the noble phrases rise, honesty, protection, justice, self-respect, place them one by one in the light of one power. Say within, Father, if this is of thee, it will abide in peace. If it is of two powers, reveal it and remove it. Then test by stillness. If it settles, proceed. If it burns, release. Forgive as law. Set your clean boundary and return at once to the government of God. Be not afraid. God is. You will find that true justice, true memory, and true self-respect do not require a second master to stand. They stand precisely because they rest in the one. And so with us, it is in proportion that we refuse every noble disguise of grievance that our dominion is restored not by argument, but by abiding in the secret place where no offense can find us and no counterfeit virtue can rule us. Now we must take up gratitude. For if forgiveness clears the altar, gratitude lights the lamp. Here, too, we have been a little confused. We have said, I'm grateful because it worked out, and then when it did not work out, we found resentment creeping back like a thief in the night. We have said, I'm grateful he changed, and then when he did not change, we discovered our thanksgiving was a leash on another's neck. Well, of course, if our gratitude is tethered to an outcome, it will swing with outcomes. If it is fastened to persons, it will be as variable as persons. That is not the gratitude that frees. That is a polite hope that the forms of life will behave according to our preference. It is not quite true gratitude if you understand the nature of spirit. True gratitude is not for events, but for the spirit that governs events. Not for the apology, but for the presence that requires no apology to be whole. Not for the injury, and not in any way excusing offense, but for the activity of God that is present even where our eyes have seen only man and his mistakes. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, not from the changing stage. In everything, give thanks, not because everything that happens is divine, but because in everything God is. Do you see the pivot? We are not to be grateful for any form of good, but for the spirit which underlies that form. Then when the form shifts, our thanksgiving abides because its object has not moved. A lady once wrote, "I am so grateful. I received the money just in time." And I answered, "Your gratitude is lovely, but be clear what you are grateful for. Not the check. Checks come and go. Your gratitude was for a living witness that God is available on earth today." Months later, a contract failed. She said, "My gratitude faltered." Of course it did, because it was still visiting the mailbox to see if God had come. When she turned and said, "Father, I thank thee that that thy government is present, that no person or paper holds my life," her peace returned first, and then, in the way of spirit, the crooked path straightened without the old anxiety. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. Gratitude for spirit makes you usable. How does this dissolve resentment? Resentment fastens our gaze to an offender and to a scene. Gratitude, rightly placed, lifts the gaze to the one who cannot be offended and who governs all. Thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee. When we say within, "I am grateful that God is here, that no person has power to separate me from the divine life, that grace is functioning even when I cannot trace it," we relocate the attention from a second power back to the one. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty from the story. Liberty from the demand that someone else unlock our peace. Make this practical. In the very moment when the mind begins to rehearse, introduce gratitude as law, not as cheerfulness. Quietly, secretly say, "Father, I thank thee that thou art present. I thank thee that thy love is the governor here. I thank thee that forgiveness is thy doing in me. I thank thee that no word, no deed, no yesterday can divide me from the life that is God." Then seal it with the creed that ends argument. Be not afraid. God is. Rest there a moment. Let the breath lengthen. If the picture rises again, return again. Gratitude is not the denial of facts. It is the denial of their supposed authority. It thanks the source, not the stream, the sun, not the patch of light on the floor. Someone will ask, should I be thankful for the hard thing? No, we are not thankful for evil. We are thankful for God in the midst of whatever appears as evil until the appearance thins and the government of spirit is felt. The psalmist did not say, "I love the valley of the shadow," but he did say, "I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." That is gratitude that frees. It is not a mood. It is a recognition. It does not wait for the world to comply. It abides in the one who never moved. So with us, it is in proportion that our thanksgiving returns to its rightful object that our freedom is restored. Keep it inward. Keep it steady. Let gratitude be the lamp that reminds the heart who reigns. Then whether forms appear or disappear, whether apologies come or not, you will find yourself unhooked from the old conditions, quietly confident under one government. Be not afraid. God is. Now let us put feet under this and call it what it is, an experiment, not a philosophy. The lecture does nothing by itself. I can say thank you and you can feel inspired, but inwardly I smile because I know that it wasn't the lecture and it won't be the inspiration that changes a life. It is what we do with it that will produce the change. So for 30 days, less than 30, you and I will quietly enter into a simple discipline. Keep it locked up within you. Go and tell no man. Let the Father who seeth in secret reward you openly by the fruit of a single government within. Morning. Before you touch the world, before the phone, before the headlines, enter your closet and shut the door. 5 to 10 minutes. Sit quietly. Breathe until the breath finds you. Set the Lord always before you. Gently, without forcing thought, repeat within, God is. Not to persuade God, but to persuade the wandering mind to rest under one presence. Be still and know that I am God. If thoughts rise, let them pass like birds across a wide sky and return to the single creed. God is. Let it deepen. Father, thou alone art presence and power. I dwell in the secret place of the Most High. Then, still in the quiet position, the day under grace. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. Say it as law. I forgive in advance. I withdraw any consent I might give today to a second power. Govern my seeing, my speaking, my steps. End the sitting by sealing the heart. Be not afraid. God is midday. Life will offer its examinations. A name will be spoken. A look will flash. An email will sting. Do not negotiate with a picture in that first instant. Stop inwardly and enthrone the one. Be not afraid. God is. Then bless, release, and proceed without mental argument. Bless them that curse you. Pray for them which despitefully use you. You are not blessing a deed. You are acknowledging a government. Say within, Father, I release this name from the authority I have imagined. Thou alone art. Give no speech to a mirror jury. Refuse rehearsal. Take the rightful outward action if one is given, but take it from the secret place, not from the court of two powers. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Resist here means non-consent to a rival authority. Your password remains the same. Be not afraid. God is. Evening. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath. Review the day, but do it without condemnation. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Where did a hook find you? One by one, place each on the altar and forgive his law. Father, I withdraw consent from a second power in this memory. If the heart tightens and will not move, do not push. Surrender. Father, forgive through me, not my will, but thine. Wait a minute in the stillness. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Then end with gratitude, not for events, but for spirit. I thank thee that thou art, that thy government is present, that no person holds the key to my peace. Seal the night with the ancient certainty. Be not afraid, God is. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Do this quietly for 30 days. Do not measure yourself by emotion. Measure by obedience. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. And it will the moment you provide it a consistent place to abide morning, the instant of trigger, evening. By their fruits ye shall know them. The fruit will appear as a loosening where you were tight, a quiet where you were noisy, a cleanness in boundaries without the smoke of grievance, a brightening of prayer. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. He that dwelleth in the secret place abides under the shadow. Under that shadow, resentment loses its oxygen. You will find a change in your life in 30 days. less than 30 days, if you will embark on this program of daily forgiveness and daily abiding. Keep it inward, keep it steady. And when the mind asks for proof, answer with practice, not argument. Be not afraid. God is. What happens as we stay with this quietly, steadily, without seeking an audience? The magnetism of resentment weakens. The story that once demanded center stage begins to speak in whispers, and sometimes not at all. The body, which had been conscripted into a private war, lays down its arms. The jaw softens. The breath descends. The heart learns its true cadence. Compassion appears, not a manufactured politeness, not a pious pose, but a natural light that begins to rise of itself when shadow is no longer fed. Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. Nothing sticks. The prince of this world comes and finds nothing in us to take hold of. Now, let us be clear what has changed. Not first the people, not first the conditions. The stage may look much the same for a season. What has changed is government. We have withdrawn our allegiance from personalities, histories, and outcomes as authorities, and we have returned that allegiance to the one. We are no longer paying tribute to a second power. The same face may appear, the same memory may knock, but we have ceased to bow. Thou couldst have no power over me, except it were given thee from above. In other words, we are not waiting for others to change so that we may have peace. We are living from peace so that others lose their supposed power to disturb. This is dominion, not domination of persons, not the triumph of one will over another, but the restoration of original order within. In the beginning, we were given dominion. And in this practice, we begin all over to draw back unto ourselves our God-given dominion. How? By living as transparency. A pane of clear glass does not argue with the weather. It does not collect the dust of every passing truck. If kept clean, light passes through effortlessly. So with us, when forgiveness has washed the surface and God has become the abiding atmosphere, no offense can stick. The word abides in us and we in the word. And fruit appears of itself: health, harmony, wholeness, completeness, perfection, infinite good, because the one has a clear way through. I live, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. Do you feel the shift? We are not a wounded personal mind fighting for air. We are a consciousness that can dwell in God and let the word dwell richly in us. From this place, boundaries grow clean and effortless. We say yes or no without the smoke of rehearsal, and then we rest the whole scene in God. Compassion turns from sentiment into strength because it flows from one government. Memory loosens its theater seat and stands as witness, not as accuser. Prayer brightens, not because we have learned better words, but because our inner ear is no longer filled with the noise of two powers. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Under that shadow, offense cannot find us. Now, do not imagine that because the heart has entered this quiet, we are finished with vigilance. You won't be out in the world 5 minutes before a fresh temptation comes to try the latch, a tone in a voice, a delay, a headline. It comes for one reason: to see if any hook remains. Let us meet it as we have learned, quickly, inwardly, without announcement. Be not afraid. God is. Return at once. Refuse rehearsal. Forgive as law. Entrust all sides to the one. If the mind argues, let it argue while you stand at the door with the password. You can't use truth, but truth can use you. It will, in the instant that you deny consent to a rival authority. Keep this hidden. Keep it steady. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. In proportion as we abide, the old magnetism dissolves, and resentment, finding nothing in us, drifts past like a cloud that has lost its wind. The result is not bravado, it is quiet dominion. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Why? Because in the presence of the one, there are no enemies to bow to, appease, or resist. There is only the government of God made visible through a life so transparent that light has its own way. So with us it is, as our eye is single and our allegiance unmixed, that freedom is regained. We live from the one presence, and resentment finds nothing in us to attach to. Be not afraid. God is. Beloved, let us gather the thread that has carried us through. We have seen that resentment is not strength. It is consent to a second power. We have learned to withdraw that consent by forgiveness, not as sentiment, but as law. We have practiced returning again and again to the single creed that restores right government within. God is. And we have found that gratitude, rightly placed, does not bow to outcomes, but recognizes the spirit that underlies all forms and thus seals the heart in freedom. This is the chain. Consent withdrawn, forgiveness given, abiding restored, gratitude established. If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. In that singleness, resentment loses its oxygen and cannot live. Now hear this as comfort and commission. We are not asked to perfect human emotion. We are asked to return and return again to the presence that is already perfect. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, saith the Lord. Do not strain at feeling. Do not chisel yourself into a saint. Enter the secret place and abide. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Let the word dwell in you and you in the word until it is the word that does the lifting. You can't use truth, but truth can use you, and it will the moment you stop honoring a rival and say within, with reverent certainty, be not afraid. God is. So go now in secret and keep the experiment. 30 days less than 30 of quiet obedience. Morning, set the Lord before you. Midday, in the instant of sting, forgive as law and return to one power. Evening, release the day and let the Father forgive through you where you cannot tell no man. This is not for performance. It is for proof. Thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly. Do not measure by drama. Measure by fruit peace where there was pressure, clarity where there was confusion, tenderness where there was armor, boundaries that are clean and without smoke. By their fruits ye shall know them. And when the old story knocks, give it no audience. Simply restore the throne within. Be not afraid. God is. Let this be our benediction and quiet charge. May the word abide in you richly. May your heart be kept with all diligence. May your sleep be under the shadow of the Almighty. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. When the memory rises, answer from the secret place. When a name stings, place it under the government of one. When you cannot forgive, say, Father, forgive through me, and wait a moment while grace takes the scepter. In proportion as you keep this inward and steady, the recognition God is will dissolve resentment at its root, not because we have conquered a rival, but because we have awakened to the absence of any rival at all. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you. Go then, quietly. Practice. Let grace prove itself. And let this be the final word. You speak to every picture, every name, every whisper of two powers. Be not afraid. God is.